My Apache neighbor returned after years and said, "Rancher, you promised to marry me." I couldn't believe it. He raised animals, fixed broken fences, and learned to read the land the way other people read books. From a young age, he understood responsibility more than comfort. Next to his land lived an Apache family. They had been there long before fences and property lines meant anything. Their home was modest, built with care and respect for the land. Among them was a young woman who stood out, not because she tried to, but because of the quiet strength she carried. She moved with confidence, spoke with honesty, and never wasted words. She respected tradition but was not afraid of change. When she looked at someone, it felt like she truly saw them. At first, the rancher and the Apache neighbor barely spoke. They would nod when passing each other or exchange a few polite words. Over time, small moments brought them closer. A broken fence that needed fixing, a lost animal that wandered too far, a shared concern about the weather ruining crops. These simple interactions slowly turned into conversations. Conversations turned into trust. The rancher admired how she handled life. She helped her family, honored her culture, and still found time to dream. She admired his discipline and his honesty. He never spoke loudly, never made false promises, and never disrespected her beliefs. There was no rush between them, no dramatic gestures, just a steady connection growing quietly like roots under the soil. Evenings became their favorite time. After long days, they would sometimes sit at a distance but close enough to talk. The desert air cooled and the sky filled with stars. They talked about small things at first: work, family, memories. Slowly, the conversations grew deeper. They spoke about fears, about feeling alone, about how life often asked more than it gave. The rancher had never been good with words, but around her, he tried. He told her how hard it was to carry responsibility alone. She told him how difficult it could be to balance tradition and the changing world. They listened to each other without judgment. That listening built something stronger than either of them expected. There was a night when everything felt heavier than usual. A bad season had damaged the rancher's crops. He worried about losing the land his family had worked for generations. She, too, was facing uncertainty, as changes around her community threatened the way of life she loved. That night, the silence felt different, more serious. They sat near the fence that separated their lands, the moon casting soft light across the ground. The rancher spoke about his fear of failure. He admitted that he felt tired of standing alone against life. She listened, her face calm but her eyes full of understanding. When she spoke, she reminded him that strength did not mean standing alone forever. In that moment, emotions ran deeper than logic. The rancher, trying to express something he barely understood himself, spoke words that would change everything. He said that if life ever allowed it, if things ever became simpler, he would marry her. It was not said loudly. It was not planned. It was spoken with sincerity but without fully understanding the weight of such a promise. She did not laugh or brush it aside. She looked at him carefully as if deciding whether his words came from truth or fear. Then she nodded slowly. To her, words were not thrown away. Promises mattered, even ones spoken during hard times. After that night, things felt both closer and more distant. There was warmth between them, but also uncertainty. Neither spoke openly about the promise again. Life, as it often does, began to move quickly. Her family faced pressure to relocate. Opportunities and obligations pulled her away. The rancher became buried in work, trying to save his land. The day she left was quiet. No dramatic goodbye, no long speeches, just a shared look that carried everything they had not said. The rancher told himself that life had simply taken its course. He believed the promise was something said in youth under stress without a real future attached to it. As years passed, the rancher aged into his role. His hands grew rougher, his face more lined. He survived seasons of success and seasons of loss. Sometimes, late at night, he thought of her. He remembered her calm voice and steady eyes. But he never imagined she would return, and certainly never imagined she would remember words he himself had almost forgotten. To him, that promise was part of the past, buried under years of responsibility and silence. He did not know that for her, it had never faded. Life did not slow down for the rancher after she left. In many ways, it became harder. The seasons came and went, each one demanding more effort than the last. Some years the rain was too little, other years it came too late. Animals fell sick, fences broke, machines failed. There was always something that needed fixing. The rancher learned to wake up before sunrise and sleep only when his body could no longer move. Work became his shield against loneliness. At first he expected time to erase old memories. He believed that if he stayed busy enough, the past would lose its shape. And for a while it did. Days were so full that he barely noticed the nights. But when the land finally grew quiet and the stars returned to the sky, memories found their way back. They came softly, without warning, a certain shade of evening light. A cool breeze that reminded him of long talks by the fence. He would pause, feel something heavy in his chest, then continue walking as if nothing had happened. People around him assumed he was content. He was known as a reliable man, serious and calm. Neighbors respected him. Some even tried to introduce him to women from nearby towns. He went on a few polite meetings, shared simple meals, exchanged careful words, but nothing ever felt right. He could not explain it, even to himself. It was not that he compared anyone to her. It was more that a quiet space inside him had already been filled once and nothing else seemed to fit. Years passed and responsibility shaped him. He became more careful with his words, more guarded with his feelings. He learned that promises could trap a person if spoken without thought. He also learned that silence could do the same. The promise he once made became something he rarely thought about directly. When it crossed his mind, he treated it like an old mistake, something made in youth under pressure, without understanding life's complexity. Meanwhile, far from the ranch, she was living a life that tested her in different ways. Leaving her home had not been easy. Every step away from familiar land felt heavy. She carried her culture with her, even when the world around her did not understand it. She worked hard, helped her family, and adapted to places that felt unfamiliar. There were moments when she felt invisible, moments when she felt too visible, but she never lost her sense of who she was. The promise the rancher made stayed with her, not as a dream but as a truth spoken aloud. In her world, words held weight. They were not decorations for emotion. They were commitments. She did not expect him to follow her or chase her. She understood life's demands. But she believed that if the words were spoken honestly, they would matter one day. There were times she felt anger toward him. Times she questioned whether he had spoken those words just to comfort himself. During difficult days, she wondered if trusting him had been foolish. But whenever doubt rose, she remembered the look on his face that night. He had not been playful. He had been afraid and honest. That memory kept her from letting go completely. She built strength through experience. She learned to stand firm in unfamiliar places. She learned when to speak and when to stay silent. Love did not disappear from her life, but it never replaced what had been promised. She did not wait helplessly for him. She lived fully, made choices, and carried responsibility. Still, in the quiet moments, she wondered if time would ever bring them back to the same place. Back at the ranch, change came slowly. The rancher's parents passed away with time, leaving him alone with the land and its memories. The house felt larger and emptier. He filled it with routine. Morning work, afternoon repairs, evenings with simple meals. He spoke to fewer people, not because he disliked company, but because he found peace in quiet. Sometimes he would walk near the old fence line that once divided their lands. Nature had changed it. Parts were broken, parts replaced. He never stopped there for long, but his steps often slowed without him realizing why. He would tell himself that the land remembered more than people did, and then move on. As the years continued, the rancher began to think differently about the past. He no longer saw it as a mistake. He saw it as a moment when he had been brave enough to speak his truth, even if he had not known what to do with it. That realization brought discomfort. It forced him to accept that forgetting was easier than understanding. There were nights when he wondered where she was, if she was safe, if she had found peace. He never tried to search for her. Part of him feared what answers he might find. Another part believed that if fate wanted them to meet again, it would happen without effort. For her, the pull back home grew stronger with time. She felt a deep longing for familiar land, for open skies that did not judge her, for silence that felt like belonging. Family matters, responsibilities, and an inner voice she could no longer ignore all pointed her back toward the place she once left. She did not return suddenly. The decision took time. It required courage to face the past and strength to accept whatever future waited. The promise she carried was not a demand. It was a question she needed answered, not just by him but by life itself. As she prepared to return, she did not imagine a dramatic reunion. She did not expect explanations or apologies. She only wanted truth. If the promise meant nothing, she would accept it. But she refused to let silence be the final answer. The rancher, unaware of her return, continued his routine like any other day. He did not know that life was slowly guiding old paths back together. He did not know that words he once believed forgotten were about to stand in front of him again, spoken clearly and without hesitation. Time had changed them both. Experience had shaped their faces and minds. But beneath the years, something familiar remained, waiting, patient, and unresolved. The day began like any other for the rancher. He woke before the sun, washed his face with cold water, and stepped outside to greet the quiet land. The air felt still, almost waiting. He did not notice it then. He fed the animals, checked the fences, and planned the work ahead. His movements were steady, practiced by years of routine. Nothing suggested that this day would be different from the thousands before it. By late morning, the sun climbed higher, and the rancher wiped sweat from his brow as he walked back toward the house. That was when he saw someone standing near the old gate. At first, he thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. Visitors were rare, and this figure stood too still, too calm. He slowed his steps, feeling a strange tightness in his chest. As he got closer, the shape became clearer. A woman stood there, her posture straight, her presence quiet but strong. She wore simple clothes, dust on her shoes from long travel. Her hair moved slightly in the breeze. The rancher stopped walking. His heart began to pound in a way he had not felt in years. He knew her. Time seemed to fold in on itself. The lines on her face told stories of years lived fully, but her eyes were the same, steady, focused, honest. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The land around them felt silent, as if holding its breath. She broke the silence first. Her voice was calm, not loud, not angry. She spoke his name the way she used to, without hesitation. That alone shook him. He realized then that this was real. She was standing in front of him, not as a memory, but as a living person. He struggled to find words. His mouth opened, then closed again. He managed a simple greeting, one that sounded weak even to his own ears. He asked how she was, how long she had been back. His questions felt small compared to everything pressing inside him. She listened, then looked at him carefully. There was no rush in her expression, no drama, just purpose. Then she said the words that hit him harder than any storm he had ever faced. She reminded him of the promise he once made. She repeated it clearly, without changing it, without softening it. She said he had promised to marry her. The rancher felt the ground shift beneath him. His first instinct was disbelief. He let out a short laugh, not from humor, but from shock. He told her that it had been years, that they were young then, that life had changed. As he spoke, he realized how defensive he sounded. She did not argue. She did not raise her voice. She simply said that she remembered and that she had returned to hear his truth. Not excuses, not silence, just truth. They stood there, the space between them filled with everything they had not said for years. The rancher felt torn. Part of him wanted to deny the promise completely, to protect himself from the weight of it. Another part knew that denying it would be a lie. He had said those words. He had meant them in that moment, even if he had not understood their cost. He invited her inside, his voice low. They sat at the small wooden table that had seen countless quiet meals. The room felt different with her in it, as if the past had stepped through the door with her. He poured water, his hands shaking slightly. She noticed but said nothing. They talked slowly at first, about her journey, about the ranch, about the years that had passed. She spoke of challenges she faced, of places she lived, of lessons learned. She did not complain. She did not blame. Her words showed strength shaped by experience. He listened, feeling both admiration and guilt. When it was his turn to speak, he struggled. He admitted that he had believed she would never return. He said that he thought the promise had faded with time. As soon as he said it, he saw a flicker of pain in her eyes, quickly controlled. That hurt him more than anger would have. She told him that for her, promises did not fade unless broken openly. Silence was not an ending. She said she did not come to demand a life that no longer fit. She came because she deserved clarity. The rancher felt exposed. He realized how easy it had been for him to bury the past under work and routine. He saw how unfair it was to assume that forgetting was acceptable. He admitted that he had been afraid of commitment, afraid of failing her, afraid of facing a life that asked more than he thought he could give. They took a walk outside, the land stretching wide around them. She looked at the fields, the animals, the fences. She saw the years of effort in every detail. She understood what the ranch meant to him. He saw in the way she walked and observed that she had not lost her connection to the land either. As they walked, they spoke more freely, not about promises but about who they had become. They laughed once or twice, surprised by the sound. The tension eased slightly, replaced by something familiar but changed. As the sun began to lower, they returned to the gate where they first met that day. She stopped there as if marking a line between past and present. She told him she would stay nearby for a few days. She did not ask him to decide immediately. She only asked him not to run from the truth again. After she left, the rancher stood alone for a long time. The land no longer felt quiet. His thoughts raced. Memories he thought forgotten returned clearly. The promise no longer felt distant. It felt alive, demanding honesty. That night, sleep did not come easily. He stared at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the land. He realized that the return of his Apache neighbor was not an accident. It was a challenge life had waited years to present. And this time, avoiding it would cost him more than facing it. He did not know what choice he would make. But for the first time in many years, he knew he could not pretend the past had no voice. The next few days passed slowly for the rancher, yet each hour felt heavy with thought. He continued his work as usual, but his mind was no longer steady. Every task reminded him of her return. The sound of the wind, the creak of the gate, even the quiet evenings all felt different now. It was as if the land itself was asking him to make a choice he had avoided for years. She stayed nearby, keeping her distance, just as she promised. She did not come to the ranch uninvited. She did not pressure him. That made everything harder. If she had been demanding or angry, it would have been easier to push her away. But her calm patience forced him to look inward. The rancher spent long hours thinking about the past. He remembered the young man he once was, full of effort but unsure of the future. He remembered the fear that lived behind his promise that night. He had spoken from emotion, not from planning. But that did not make the words meaningless. He understood that now. One evening he walked toward the old fence line again. The sky was painted with soft colors as the sun went down. He stood there, remembering how two lives once met at that same place. He realized something important then. The promise was not only about marriage. It was about respect, about honesty, about recognizing another person's trust. The next morning he made a decision, not about the future yet, but about truth. He invited her to come speak with him again. When she arrived, she could see the change in his posture. He looked tired but clearer. They sat outside this time, where the land felt open and honest. He began by apologizing, not in a dramatic way but sincerely. He told her he was sorry for letting silence take the place of truth. He admitted that he had been wrong to assume time erased responsibility. She listened without interrupting. Her face showed emotion, but she stayed composed. When he finished, she thanked him for speaking honestly. She said that hearing the truth mattered more to her than the outcome. He explained that the years had shaped him into someone cautious. He spoke of his fears, his attachment to the land, and his worry that he might not be able to give her the life she deserved. He did not try to sound noble. He simply spoke as he was. She responded with honesty of her own. She said she did not come back chasing an old dream. She came back as the woman she had become. She respected his life and his struggles. She did not want a promise kept out of guilt. She wanted a choice made with understanding. That conversation changed something between them. The weight of the past lifted slightly. For the first time, they were not speaking as young people bound by emotion, but as adults shaped by experience. They agreed to spend time together without pressure. Simple time, shared meals, walks across the land, conversations without expectations. Slowly, a new connection formed. It was quieter than before, but deeper. They learned who the other had become, not who they used to be. The rancher noticed how naturally she fit into the rhythm of the land. She did not try to change anything. She helped where help was needed, respected silence, and understood hard days without complaint. He, in turn, found himself opening up more easily than he ever had before. There were moments of doubt, moments when he wondered if it was too late, moments when she questioned whether the past still had a place in the present, but instead of hiding those thoughts, they spoke them aloud. That honesty became their foundation. One evening, after a long day, they sat watching the sky darken. The rancher felt a calm he had not known in years. He realized that the fear he once felt had come from not understanding himself. Now, even though life was still uncertain, he felt stronger facing it with clarity. He turned to her and told her that if they were to move forward, it would not be because of a promise made long ago. It would be because of a choice made now. He said he cared for her deeply and respected the journey she had walked. He asked if she would be willing to build something new together, slowly and honestly. She did not answer immediately. She looked at the land, the sky, and then at him. When she spoke, her voice was steady. She said that this was all she had ever wanted, not the words themselves, but the truth behind them. She agreed to walk forward with him without rushing, without pretending the past did not exist. The decision was not celebrated with grand gestures. There was no announcement, no sudden change. Life continued much as it always had, but something inside both of them felt settled. Over time, they became partners in the truest sense. They supported each other, respected differences, and honored both the past and the present. The promise that once felt like a burden became something else entirely, a reminder of how words, when spoken honestly, can shape lives. The rancher learned that avoiding the past did not protect him. Facing it did. She learned that patience and strength could bring clarity even after years of silence. Their story did not end with perfection. It ended with understanding, with two people choosing honesty over fear. And with the quiet knowledge that sometimes life brings unfinished moments back not to punish, but to give them the ending they deserve.